I don't know if any of you have seen the show Yellowstone. I have, a friend recommended it and I watched a few episodes this week when I couldn't sleep one night. It's always what you should do at 2 a.m. in the morning when you can't sleep. That is the show to watch. But what's fascinating about that show is... No, that's 1923. This is the show that kicked us all off was Yellowstone. Then you had the prequel with the 18 something or another, and then the 1923 and whatever's going on. Okay. Anyway, it's like a whole phenomenon. And if you're ever going to Buc-ee's, you can buy Beth Dutton inspired whatever. Anyway, like it's a thing. So I also had no idea that it was a thing until this past week, because apparently I live in a bubble. But you have a patriarch, John Dutton, who has this ginormous ranch in the middle of Montana that he is doing everything in his power to protect. He is constantly having people trying to do all sorts of land grabs, whether it's a Native American reservation, developers, the state of Montana, and he has a whole bunch of people who work for him. And what you see is this character who you almost want to not like because he's somewhat ruthless, and yet on the other hand, you can't help but like because it's Kevin Costner. And hello, like right there, you're already eye candy in love, right? But when we think about what happens, I'm sure that we've all been in those moments where we sit there and be like, well, if I had only thought of something like that to say in a crazy crisis moment. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm in crazy crisis moments, I never think of the best thing or the coolest thing to say or do. Frequently, I freeze. I look like a deer in headlights. Whereas Kevin Costner's character, John Dutton, knows not only what to say, but what to do to somehow navigate these tricky waters that he and his family find himself in. And I bring this up because, in a way, shocked at my comparison this week, Moses somehow did not do a John Dutton. He had the opposite effect. He went up on Mount Sinai. He interacts with God. You would think, getting up into some sort of spiritual higher realm of being able to be calm and centered and know that everything is going to be okay. He receives even the commandments we're taught. There's a midrash that the story of the golden calf appears just after God has taught Moses all about Shabbat. So Moses knows he's going to get through the wilderness. He is going to find the promised land. There's going to be an entire culture. He comes down off that mountain into a crisis moment, into the golden calf moment. And he does the exact opposite of what anybody should do with their right mind. He takes the 10 Commandments, which were supposedly written with the finger of God, and smashes them. He did what I think most of us would actually do, because we're not portrayed or written by a group of writers in a room coming up with the best solution for a contrived problem. He was so angry. And we can see and almost feel the visceral anger coming off of Moses, even though we weren't there. He breaks the tablet. He then goes on to destroy the golden calf. And you can imagine how distraught poor Moses is. God didn't destroy the nation. He knows what they should be doing, but they're not. And it's like you can sort of sit and wonder, here's a guy who knows point B, down on the horizon, they're going to make it through and become a nation, but no clue how to get from where they are, point A, down there to point B. And out of pure frustration, fear, doubt, he responds in anger. And I don't know about you, but I can certainly say that I have been there. And when those tablets, I think, were first broken, I also would argue that a part of Moses broke with them as well. Because he goes on through the despair to come up with a nifty solution to his own problem of doubt and fear and anger. He wants to know that God is going to remain with the Israelites. He needs to know that he can see God. It's not just that he can experience God. He has to visibly see God. Now, as you all know, because you're all amazingly wonderful, great practicing Jews, we're not supposed to be able to look and see God. And here you have Moses going for it. So Moses himself beholds God's presence, but not God's face. He beholds God's back. That's the best body part of all that God has. By the way, he also got to see God's feet at a different point, but that's a different story. We're not there. In this story, he gets to see God's back. But before he sees God's back, we can see this dialogue going on between Moses and God. And God kind of acquiesces into the whole situation and says, okay, I'm just going to show you my back, but you're never, ever going to see my face. And seeing God's back was enough for Moses. It was enough for Moses to get through the anger, to get through the doubt, to start accepting that no, he's not necessarily going to have all of the nifty solutions and the best words to everything, but he is going to have some clarity. Moses Maimonides teaches us that by seeing God's back, he saw everything that happened way before him, and it gave him tremendous clarity. In his case, hindsight for him truly was 20/20. He got to see really the ramification of everybody's actions. Thank you, Maimonides. Now, I'm not sure if that's what I would want, to have that level of clarity for certain, but it gave Moses a sense of reassurance. The price, though, that Moses was left with, if you recall, at one point Moses couldn't speak and Aaron had to be his mouthpiece for Pharaoh, was that now his face was so bright and shiny. It was too bright and shiny. It was too sparkly. It was too much for everybody else to behold. He had to wear a veil to protect them from him. We all, I believe, want a certain level of clarity. We all want to know, how do we respond in those difficult situations that we find ourselves in? You would think that with age, clarity it's there, but I can promise you, as somebody who's been working with people of a variety of ages and doing work as a visiting congregant, even as people age, clarity doesn't necessarily arrive. In some cases, it gets worse. What we find is that for Moses, he had to find somehow a path of accepting and trusting and slowing down to not respond the way that he did. So that he actually, in a way, demonstrates what we all should be striving for: growth, trying to hit our highest potential and become our best selves. He does grow in a fashion of sorts. When he comes down the mountain the next time, there's no smashing of tablets. And what's fascinating about it, and I think powerful, is that the part of him that was so broken and so angry, he kept in with him nearby. He made sure that those broken tablets were cared for, probably to remember that what he did possibly, so that he would maybe not do that ever again, as a sign and a symbol and a reminder. But I think also to kind of accept that there's going to be parts of who we are that are angry, that aren't very nice, And they're just as valuable as the parts of ourselves that are full of love and compassion and goodness. And that as a whole, we need all of them to be a complete human being. So as in the image of Moses, may we walk through life with our broken pieces and our whole pieces, remembering that combined, we are a more complete, whole, and loving person. Shabbat Shalom.